In the police archives, file 314B contains fewer than 10 pages. In the middle of the file is a black and white photograph. The paper edges yellowed with age. A woman holds a child tightly in her arms, smiling as if the world were safe. On the table behind them, a clock has stopped at 3:15. Everyone in the photograph did not live past the next day. They had once been a nanny, a midwife, a kind grandmother at the end of the street, someone everyone trusted, someone to whom they could hand over their children without concern. But when the door closed, those arms were no longer a refuge. They became the final moment in a small life. A pair of children's shoes placed neatly by the door. A quilt carrying the scent of soap. Those things remained in the house forever, just like the child who once used them. When the protector is the destroyer, what is lost is not only a child. It is the day you lose your faith in people. If any detail in this story leaves you unsettled, leave a comment below. It might be the missing piece someone else has overlooked. And if you want to keep opening files never before made public, subscribe so that when the darkness opens a new door, you will be the first to step inside. On October 12, 1954, at 9:35 p.m., Samuel Doss, 59, was confirmed dead at his home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The initial medical report listed the cause as acute heart failure. But the attending physician, who had already witnessed an unusual hospitalization of Samuel just 2 weeks earlier, requested that tissue and stomach fluid samples be retained for analysis. The results from the Oklahoma State Crime Laboratory, sent on October 18th, showed arsenic levels in his body several times higher than the fatal threshold. The report was forwarded directly to the Tulsa Police Department with a short note: possible deliberate poisoning. The last person to be with Samuel was his wife, Nannie Doss. Born on November 4th, 1905, in Blue Mountain, Alabama, Nannie grew up in a farming family, isolated from the community. As a teenager, a head injury during a train ride home from school left her with chronic headaches. In the evenings, Nannie often read romance magazines, clipping and keeping stories that ended in perfect marriages. In 1921, at the age of 16, she married Charlie Braggs. Life with her mother-in-law was tense, marked by frequent arguments. Over 8 years, 4 children were born. 2 died within the first few years, recorded as intestinal illness, a common diagnosis in rural Alabama at the time. In 1928, Charlie left with the surviving child, ending the marriage. Over the next 2 decades, Nannie married 4 more times. Robert Harrelson, married 1929, died 1945. Frank Harrelson, married 1945, died 1947. Richard Morton, married 1952, died 1953. All died after a brief period of falling ill. Their medical records, collected after Nannie's arrest, showed recurring symptoms: severe abdominal pain, vomiting, and rapid physical decline. With Samuel Doss, the chain of events began in September 1954. When he was hospitalized with symptoms of fever and fatigue. Discharged on October 5th, he was advised to avoid food and drink of uncertain origin. But on the evening of October 12th, he drank coffee prepared by Nannie. By morning, he was unconscious and died before reaching the hospital. On October 19, 1954, police questioned Nannie at her home. The interrogation record noted, Mrs. Doss was cooperative, calm, occasionally smiling when answering. She offered no objection when asked about arsenic. In a second interview, she admitted adding arsenic to Samuel's food and drink, explaining, I didn't want him to suffer for long. As the investigation widened, traces of arsenic were found in kitchenware, in the spice cabinet, and in a jar of baking mix. Under further questioning, Nannie recounted the deaths of her previous husbands, 2 daughters, a grandchild, her mother, and her sister. In total, more than 10 cases were listed in the final investigative report. The trial opened on May 18, 1955. Nannie was charged with the murder of Samuel Doss and sentenced to life imprisonment on June 17, 1955. The press called her the Giggling Granny, a nickname originating from her habit of smiling broadly in photographs, even while being escorted by police. Nannie served her sentence at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary for Women until her death from leukemia on June 2, 1965. In the police archives, the crime scene photographs from each case remain. A tidy kitchen, white porcelain cups stacked neatly, an apron hanging beside the sink. No signs of struggle. No overturned furniture, only coffee, gone cold in the cup. And along the rim, a faint grey residue, the remainder of what had ended all her marriages. The scent of cold coffee lingered in the air of the Tulsa kitchen. On the shelf, the baking mix jar sat open, its surface coated with a fine layer of dust, catching light as it entered through the window. An investigator wrote in his report, a faint sweetness and metallic taste clinging to the tongue. Hard to describe, but impossible to forget. It was also a kitchen, but half a world away, and nearly 2 decades earlier, the air carried a different smell. Not coffee, but the heavy, dense odor of soap boiling in a cast-iron pot. The one stirring that pot, like Nannie, was regarded as a devoted caregiver, always smiling when neighbors stopped by. She believed she was protecting her family from a curse. The cast-iron pot on the coal stove gave off a steady simmer. A layer of white foam rose to the surface, drifting slowly around the rim, blending with the heavy scent that spread through the small kitchen at number 11. San Giorgio Street, Reggio Emilia, northern Italy. It was the autumn of 1939, and the woman standing beside the stove was Leonarda Cianciulli, 46, owner of a grocery shop and a neighbor everyone in the town knew by sight. Leonarda was born on April 14, 1894, in Montella, Avellino. Her childhood was tied to a story she would later tell repeatedly. Her mother had cursed her from the day she was born because she was an unwanted child. In her early years, she lived in the coldness of her family, often seeking reassurance from fortune tellers. In 1917, Leonarda married Raffaele Pansardi, a clerk, against her parents' wishes. The family moved frequently, and with each move, she sought out local fortune tellers and spiritualists. According to her, one fortune teller once said, "You will marry and have children, but all your children will die young." Over the course of 17 pregnancies, Leonarda lost 13 children to miscarriages or death in infancy. Only 4 survived, and she believed she had to protect them at any cost. In 1939, Italy entered World War II. A soldier came to the grocery store to inform her that her son, Giuseppe, would be conscripted. To Leonarda, it was a sign that the curse was drawing near. In notes later found by police, one line written in blue ink read, "To protect, an exchange is needed." The exchange was not money or goods. On September 17, 1939, the first victim, Faustina Setti, a middle-aged woman living alone, visited the shop. Leonarda told her she could help find a good husband, but that a special ritual was required. Faustina was instructed to write letters to her family, stating that she was going away. She was also invited to Leonarda's home to prepare for the new journey. According to Leonarda's testimony in court, Faustina was given a glass of wine with something added to help her sleep. After that, she lost consciousness. The account Leonarda gave during her trial a decade later was recorded verbatim. "I dragged her into the room, used an axe. Then, I did everything as in my soap recipe." On September 5, 1940, the second victim, Francesca Soavi, arrived with the promise of a job at a girls' school in Piacenza. Like Faustina, she wrote letters to her family, then disappeared. On September 30, 1940, the third victim was Virginia Cacioppo, a retired opera singer. Leonarda promised to introduce Virginia to a wealthy man in Florence. Virginia also wrote letters, and that was the last time her family heard from her. In all 3 cases, the letters sent were similar. Written in the victim's own hand, gentle in tone, but always ending with the same sentence, "Don't worry about me." Police only began to take notice when a cousin of Virginia reported suspicion, stating she had seen Virginia enter Leonarda's home but not leave. On October 15, 1940, police arrived to search the premises. The crime scene report read, "The large cast-iron pot on the stove was still warm. Inside was a thick mixture, the strong smell of soap mixed with the scent of rusted iron." In the storage room, they found multiple round bars of soap, several packages of biscuits, and a wooden spoon with deep scratches. Leonarda was arrested on the spot. At the police station, she confessed in full. Her statement filled 4 pages, interspersed with handwritten cooking recipes and sentences difficult to distinguish as either justification or confession. "I added white powder, sugar, chocolate. Anyone who ate it found it tasty. I used the rest to make soap. That soap was very good for the skin." The 1946 trial in Reggio Emilia drew a large public audience. Leonarda sat still, hands resting on her lap, occasionally adjusting her headscarf. When the prosecutor read the list of evidence, she nodded as if confirming a formula. The press gave her the nickname La Saponificatrice di Correggio, the soap maker of Correggio. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison and 3 years in a psychiatric hospital. Leonarda died at the Pozzuoli Psychiatric Hospital on October 15, 1970. Today, in the archives of the Rome Crime Museum, Leonarda's cast-iron pot and wooden spoon remain. They are displayed in a glass case, beside bars of soap that have discolored with age. The scent is gone, but many say that when standing close, it still feels as though one is in the kitchen on San Giorgio Street, hearing the sound of the pot simmering and the wooden spoon tapping softly against the bottom. The smell of soap from the San Giorgio kitchen has faded with the years. But in the glass case of the Rome Crime Museum, the cast-iron pot and wooden spoon remain. Silent evidence, recalling the image of a woman who believed she was protecting her family through a ritual no one dared speak of aloud. Nearly 2 decades to the north, another room kept its own distinct sound. Not the simmer of a pot, but the ticking of a wall clock, moving slowly through each second. The one who heard that ticking most often was the child placed in the care of a woman and then never returned home. Her name was Dagmar Overbye. The fate of the children in her arms was something the police could never count with certainty. If any detail in the story leaves you unsettled, leave a comment below. It might be what others have overlooked. And if you want to continue following files that have never been opened, subscribe, so that when we find a new door in the dark, you will be the first to step inside. The steady ticking echoed through the small third-floor room of a house on Enghaveve Street, Copenhagen. On the wooden chair near the window, a woman sat sewing, her eyes occasionally glancing toward the cradle placed against the wall. The child inside did not cry, did not move. The second hand continued to mark each interval of silence. Dagmar Johanne Amalie Overbye was born on April 23, 1887, in rural Zealand, Denmark. Her childhood was marked by long winters and unending household work. In 1902, at the age of 15, she left her hometown to work as a maid in Copenhagen. Those who knew Dagmar in her youth described her as quiet, orderly, and always doing everything on time. After the First World War, Dagmar opened a childcare service. At the time, many women in Copenhagen, especially single mothers, faced heavy social pressure. Dagmar's service was regarded as a discreet solution. Parents would leave their child, pay a monthly fee, and she would provide care. Some left their children for only a few months. Others left them permanently. From 1913 to 1920, no one kept an exact record of how many children were placed in her care. Later investigations confirmed that at least 25 were never returned. Official causes of death were often listed as high fever or pneumonia, and the bodies were rarely seen. Many mothers received only a brief written notice. "Your child has died. There is no need to return." The investigation report noted a recurring pattern. Dagmar would receive the child, feed and care for them for a few weeks, then report that the child had fallen seriously ill. Only a few days later, she would say the burial had already taken place. No one questioned her, as infant deaths were not uncommon in society at the time. On September 8, 1920, a mother named Karen Matson came to retrieve her 6-month-old daughter. She had received no prior notice of illness, but Dagmar told her the child had died yesterday and was buried in a nearby cemetery. Karen became suspicious and contacted the police. When officers searched the house, they found in the kitchen an enamel bucket containing cold water and a damp cloth. In the bedroom, the cradle was empty, the bed linen freshly laundered. In a wooden cupboard, they found neatly folded children's clothes, many sets never worn. Any sets. The wider investigation led to statements from neighbors. None had ever seen the funerals for the children Dagmar claimed to have buried. One witness said they had once seen her leave at night with a large bag and return empty-handed. On September 15, 1920, Dagmar was arrested. In the interrogation room, she admitted to having helped many children leave peacefully by submerging them in water or covering their mouths until they were silent. Her statement was recorded verbatim in the file. They would never have to suffer from being abandoned or grow up in poverty. The trial began in March 1921. The prosecution presented a list of 25 confirmed victims and suggested there were more. Small woolen hats, cotton quilts, and a yellowed photograph of several children were displayed in court. Dagmar sat still, her eyes fixed on the wall clock above the judge's bench. On April 3, 1921, the court sentenced her to death. The sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment. Dagmar served her term at Christianshavn Women's Prison until her death in 1929. Case file number 48 1921 of the Copenhagen police concluded with a single sentence. The final number could not be determined. No one knows exactly how many children lay in her arms for the last time, hearing the ticking of the clock before disappearing from the world. If any detail in this story leaves you unsettled, leave a comment below. And if you wish to continue exploring files that have never been opened, subscribe, so that when we find a new door in the dark, you will be the first to step inside. The ticking of the wall clock in the Copenhagen room finally stopped when the old battery fell from its slot. In the police file, it was listed simply as Exhibit number 12, placed beside a cloth bag containing several woolen children's hats. More than 20 years later, and half a world away, another sound could be heard in a quiet room in Tokyo. Not the ticking of a clock, but the movement of a fountain pen across a death certificate. Each stroke was completed with a red seal pressed into the corner of the page, drying quickly in the air that smelled faintly of antiseptic. The person signing those papers was a renowned midwife, known for assisting in hundreds of deliveries. Her name was Miyuki Ishikawa, and beneath the red ink, children disappeared, without anyone raising an alarm. The ink on the page dried quickly. The red seal left a perfect circle enclosing 3 Japanese characters. On the desk, a stack of death certificates lay neatly arranged, beside a notebook listing the names of parents who had signed away custody of their children. Miyuki Ishikawa was born on February 5, 1897, in Kunitomi. Miyazaki Prefecture. She graduated from a midwifery school and, by the late 1920s, was appointed director of the Meihokan Maternity Hospital in Shinjuku Ward, Tokyo. In the eyes of the medical community, Miyuki was a model of dedication. Her white blouse always sharply pressed, hair tied neatly, voice soft and deliberate. Post-war Japan was steeped in poverty. In 1945, Tokyo was a city of makeshift slums with thousands of families unable to feed themselves, let alone care for newborns. Infant mortality was high, and many children were abandoned at the gates of temples, hospitals, or train stations. Miyuki recognized what she believed was a more humane solution, not saving children whose parents could not raise them. According to the 1948 court records, she began advising parents to leave their children at the hospital and sign abandonment papers. Those children were never recorded in the treatment logs, and their causes of death were never officially reported. From 1944 to 1948, the number of child deaths in the hospital rose steadily, but no alarm was raised. Medical records were left blank or filled with vague phrases such as congenital weakness or non-recoverable. Police later found that many death certificates had been written in the same handwriting, Miyuki's own. On January 12, 1948, two police officers arrived at the hospital to investigate a missing person case. They happened upon a storage room where multiple tightly bound cloth bundles were stacked on top of one another. Inside were the bodies of several newborns. The smell of antiseptic mixed with dampness forced one investigator to cover his mouth. The forensic report listed 34 suspicious deaths at the hospital, occurring in less than 4 years. According to prosecutors, the actual number could have been over 100. During interrogation, Miyuki did not deny it. She said, "Their parents had abandoned them. I only did what was necessary so they would not suffer." The investigation also revealed that Miyuki received money from some parents as a burial fee, part of which was shared with obstetrician Takeshi Ishikawa, her husband, and a child broker named Shiro Nakayama. All three were arrested on January 15, 1948. The trial began in July 1948. The prosecutor described Miyuki's actions as killing on paper, deaths without violence, without sound, carried out simply by withholding medical intervention. Many witnesses, young mothers, testified that they had been persuaded to give up their children with the warning, "It will die of starvation if you take it home." The verdict was delivered on October 12, 1948. Miyuki was sentenced to 8 years in prison, her husband to 4 years, and Nakayama to 4 years. The Japanese public reacted strongly to what they saw as a lenient sentence. The court cited as grounds for reduction the fact that many parents had consented and the severe post-war poverty. Miyuki was released early and disappeared from public record. The date, place, and circumstances of her death were never documented. In the archives of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, the case file remains. Among the yellowed pages is a stack of death certificates, all in the same handwriting, all bearing the same red seal. The ink has faded, but the red circle is still clear enough to read the name of the signatory. And in the long list of children marked as non-recoverable, not a single line mentions their place of rest. If this story leaves you with questions, leave a comment below. And if you want to continue exploring files that have never been opened, subscribe, so that when we find a new door in the dark, you will be the first to step inside. We often believe that those who hold children in their arms, lulling them to sleep with a lullaby, are protectors of life, that the hands pulling a blanket up are meant to keep them warm, that the person signing the birth papers is giving them a new beginning. But in the stories we have just heard, those arms became the final boundary. Those hands held tight, not to comfort. And the red seals, the legal documents, became a one-way ticket. The smile in a newspaper photograph, the smell of soap, the ticking of a clock, or the handwriting on a death certificate. All are equally silent. Only one unanswered question remains. When the most trusted person is the one who destroys, to whom can that trust be given? If any detail in this episode leaves you unsettled, leave a comment below. It may be the missing piece others have overlooked. And if you wish to continue opening files never before made public, subscribe, so that when the darkness opens a new door, you will be the first to step inside.